Story 1. I often see graphic design touted as an escape route for people who find themselves wanting to change careers. I honestly think it's pretty irresponsible of the people who run these courses promising that, as it's a really difficult industry to get into. And even if you can get into it, it's then really hard to get the fun, creative work you were picturing when you signed up. I'm sure a lot of people end up disappointed. Story 2. A friend of mine is a forensic scientist, and whenever he's on dating apps, it's the only thing people want to talk about. His work is actually pretty technical and involves a lot of routine tasks. Story 3. After 4 years in the military, my biggest complaint was the lack of sleep and the irregular schedule. My first job after that was as a security guard. I couldn't believe how lucky I was, getting paid to stand there and do nothing. Until that job, I had not realized how much I would hate being bored. Story 4. Working at a flower shop is just like any other retail position, but everyone assumes it's more enjoyable than it really is. Assisting families in selecting flowers for funerals is definitely not the fun part either. Story 5. I would say most jobs end up being disappointing in a never meet your heroes kind of way. I would rather know which jobs seemed unappealing but turned out to be surprisingly satisfying. Story 6. I work as a scientist. I am not sure if people generally view that profession as enjoyable, but I believe they expect it to be filled with more eureka moments and a lot less, I have to manually process this data for 600 hours before I can start analyzing it. Story 7. When you work a challenging retail or food service job, being slow can seem appealing. However, over time, it erodes your soul. Time slows down to a crawl, and over long enough periods, the culture will shift to where everyone treats the job as waiting out the clock, and all forms of work are interruptions of your scheduled phone time. It can destroy a culture, and that's before you start talking about losing hours and other issues. Story 8. Big Law. The pay is incredible. The work is unbelievably stressful and exhausting. A lot of people tell me that they also work a lot, but constantly being mentally on for 50 to 70 hours a week, approximately 40 to 60 in billables, analyzing deals in the tens and hundreds of millions of dollars, around a bunch of cutthroat, brilliant, high-functioning type of personalities who are ready to pounce at any mistake, is a whole different level of mental exhaustion. It sucks away your ability to do anything, enjoy anything in the time that you do have outside of work. You end up spending so much money for shortcuts just to make life work out. Living close by the office, food delivery, cleaning, dry cleaning, the grand gestures when you can't reliably be there for loved ones, and so on, that you don't actually pocket nearly as much as you think you do despite the high salaries. I am so glad I finally made it out after many years of grinding and went of counsel. I still get paid reasonably well, but the hours are dope. Story 9. Architecture is a very peculiar medium compared to other art or science professions because it is kind of both, or either, depending on which side of the trade you are engaged in. But fundamentally, it is an odd place to be. Let's say you are a painter, you think of things then you paint it. The same if you are a sculptor. But you rarely, if ever, see an architect going out and physically building his or her own projects. It relies on others to make it happen, and in the end, you are actualizing someone else's dream, using someone else's money, relying on someone else's labor. So you can take pride in being a part of it or not. The pay is relatively low if you are not licensed. Hard to break $100,000 unless you are deeply rooted in a company in a big city like New York. Long work hours are expected because it is a noble tradition in architecture, from the academic level to the professional level. Lots of planning and deadlines are always around the corner. At the end, you are in the service industry. Instead of a 5-minute deadline for a cheeseburger at a drive-thru, it's a 6 months deadline for a design or a set of drawings or construction or something. There is always something. Story 10. I cringe every time I see someone say they want to live on a farm or ranch. It's hard, brutal work. Most people that say it will not last. Edit. Been thinking about doing an Ask Me Anything or a post on Off My Chest about this for a long time. Maybe this weekend. Story 11. Nursing became my career because I wanted to help people and engage in interesting medical tasks, and I did achieve that. However, I also faced being yelled at by patients and other staff, being spit on, hit, choked, demeaned, working more than 16 hours at times, and often missing important family events while working weekends. Story 12. Musician in an orchestra. Don't get me wrong. I love my job, but it is exhausting sometimes and lacks a lot of the glamour I imagined. Odd hours, days, traveling, mad conductors. Story 13. Archaeologist, your dirt is not clean enough. Mostly it's just digging up tons of stones and tree roots, and more dirt. At least when you are in the field and you mess up your body kind of fast. Story 14. Working at GameStop as a video game nerd is essentially commission sales without the bonus. And if you don't meet sales targets, you could eventually be fired for poor performance. Story 15. I would think any first responder job. Yes, it's cool you get to be seen as the heroes of society, but with all the messed up things you have to see, like you're constantly seeing people go through the worst moment of their lives. I would imagine that gets to you. Story 16. People say, make your hobby your job. I enjoyed writing simple computer programs. I got some qualifications and then a job as a programmer at a retailer. The programming was boring. My boss wanted everything done by the end of yesterday. The other people in the information technology section were vile and bullying. I gave it up. Story 17. A travel blogger job seems appealing with its promise of adventure and free trips, but it often turns out disappointing due to constant deadlines, unstable income, and the pressure to always perform for social media. Story 18. College professor, much less lecturing on profound topics of importance, much more trying to keep your course running properly on Canvas than expected. Story 19. Managing a strip club. I dated one for a couple of years, and I can say there is absolutely nothing appealing to the job behind the scenes. It may appear to the customers that it's all about running a bar full of naked women, but in reality, it's about breaking up petty fights between dancers, dealing with unruly customers, and working for owners who don't want to pay bills and are always looking to find someone cheaper than you as a replacement. And when someone possesses, uses, buys, or sells drugs on the premises, the police will also take a long, hard look at you and how you run things. Story 20. Working in the television and film industry. Some days you get to do some cool stuff, but most days it is long, hard, exhausting work. Thankfully, in the last few years, our days have mostly shortened to 12-hour days of work. But I still very vividly remember the 17 to 18-hour days, 5 times a week. Plus, with rotating schedules, you never get used to sleeping until you are off a show. You get Fridays where your day starts at 6 p.m., and then, when you get off 12 to 14 hours later, have to turn back over for a 6 a.m. report on Monday. I love what I do, but the people who pretend it must be the easiest job do not really understand all the work that goes into the entertainment industry. Story 21. I used to work at a zoo, which a lot of people think would be really great. My job, however, was to circumcise the elephants. The pay wasn't great, but the tips were huge. Story 22. Being a private investigator looks exciting in movies and sounds fun on paper until you realize you've been sitting in a van for 11 hours, waiting to get video footage of a guy who claims he can't work due to back problems, lift a big rock on his front lawn. Story 23. I am a sales specialist at a motorcycle dealership. People always tell me I have their dream job, but I really don't. It is still sales, and it is a hard and brutal job with long hours and sometimes little pay when you don't sell, especially when you can't control interest rates. Story 24. Nursing does have its perks and benefits, but it used to be way better. We are dealing with much sicker patients and much more mental illness. We are expected to care for the same amount of patients, and oftentimes we cannot depend on support staff to do much for individual patients because they are running ragged from having too many patients assigned. Also, if we ask them to do a task and they forget or can't because they are too busy, it falls on our license if that patient wasn't turned or the blood sugar wasn't done. The violence and emotional abuse is unmanageable. The benefits are getting worse and things are being taken away left and right. The burden of responsibility is crushing and spills over into your days off. You begin to dread work on your days off. I showed up one weekend shift and without any training or asking me to do it, I was assigned as a charge nurse. The night charge handed off to me and said, "You'll be fine, you've got this." And I also was assigned patients. I had no idea how to be charged. Story 25. Literally everything. 40 hours a week of anything gets old after a while. You become disenchanted with the positives and too familiar with the negatives. Story 26. You see the common wisdom spouted time and time again, and it's always along the same lines. Don't go to college. It's a waste of money. Get a good job in trades. The money is a lot better anyway. Let's assume the pay is the same or better. On the whole, it's not. There are always outliers and exceptions, but in general, a 4-year degree always pays more, and often much more, in the long run. Even if this is the case, trades are still worse. Why? Trades have much higher injury rates. Trades have much more frequent and longer periods of unemployment. Trades have much higher suicide rates. Trades have higher divorce rates. Trades die on the job a lot more than anyone else. Trades abuse alcohol and drugs more than other jobs. This tends to get glossed over all the time by the "my friend is a plumber and makes $130,000 per year and has 3 houses" crowd. Story 27. I took environmental science with a focus on climate science. I was going to save the world. No, I am watching it burn. And every time I see a news article about slowing North Atlantic currents or permafrost explosions in Siberia, my climate depression increases. Being able to recognize and understand the subtle progression of the feedback loops is a curse. Story 28. I'll say, with a caveat, that I personally enjoy it, but have seen a lot of colleagues become disillusioned after finally making it to become a doctor. A lot of people see it as a prestigious career that earns tons of money and is rather cushy. The truth is quite different. Patients can be, and I'd even say it's more than 50%, the rudest, overly demanding, and entitled people you can work with. Some treat you with respect as they are the ones who actively need your services and recognize you have years upon years of knowledge and experience under your belt. But many, if not most, couldn't give a damn and will have a duality about them where they both want you to help them, but also think you don't know anything and will dismiss what you say, especially if it isn't a quick pill fix along the lines of you need to change your life in some way. Also, medicine is a dirty job. People think of the shirt and tie doctor in the white coat. Yeah, some people like to pretend they are working in some office setting. The reality is your tie will get soaked in random bodily juices during CPR, you'll get blood and feces on your nice shoes, and some guy having a psychotic break will grab at your tie and have a nice lever by which to try to seriously hurt you. But I still really like my job. It allows me to flex my critical thinking, keeps me active, and does give me a feeling that I did something meaningful day to day. But a lot of my younger peers come out of training ready to quit because they simply didn't know what the job was going to be like. What you see before clinicals, either on TV or what you're exposed to during high school or college, is limited and not a good representation of the job itself. Story 29. Librarian. I tell people it's my job, and they say, "That must be chill," or "I'd love to read all day." It's basically just another customer service job where I'm either checking books in or out, or showing people how to do basic computer things. However, we also attract a lot of folks with mental health problems or substance abuse issues, and that can lead to some tense situations. Story 30. This thread is telling me that basically every job is challenging. No surprise there, I guess. I really think that the secret to happiness is to be one of those super lucky individuals who really love what they do and they make good money doing it. I am so envious of those people. Like, I'm sure that even when you love your job, it's hard to get out of bed on Monday morning. But even if you can enjoy it just most of the time, that would be amazing. I've had jobs where I would sit in the parking lot before going inside and have a miniature breakdown because I disliked the job so much. I would have to work up the nerve to walk into the building. I did that for 6 long years at that place. Story 31. Many people believe that because they enjoy watching films, they would also enjoy making films. Those individuals do not understand the comprehensive amount of work and stress involved in actually making a film and how very little creative input most people on a set actually get to have. Story 32. I used to work as a knight at medieval times. People used to tell me how much they loved the place as a kid and how cool and fun it must be to work there. While it was certainly fun at times, it was also physically exhausting, very dangerous, and did not pay anywhere near what it should have. They would also schedule so many shows that most of them would barely have any guests, but expect maximum effort from you regardless. And the sand got everywhere. It would find its way back to your house even. I could tell who was going to last based on how desperate their life was before getting hired. Office worker looking for something fun and exciting? You wouldn't last a month. College dropout with 0 career opportunities and chronic depression? I'll enjoy working with you for the next 5 years. Story 33. Any career in social work starts because you want to help people. Then you get a job paying less than $50,000 a year. This job causes so much stress and trauma that you get burnt out and lose most of your ability to help anyone, including yourself. Story 34. Anything with a lot of travel is fun when you are starting your career. You get to see new places, build up your miles, and meet new people, but as you get older, it sucks. You want to be home more, not live out of a suitcase and in hotels.